This is Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
I'm the only lawyer ever to obtain a court ruling that a president of the United States committed a crime.
For truth. For competition.
As a young lawyer, I helped break up AT&T. That's why you have all your cell phones today.
For sovereignty. For the Republic.
I'm the guy who at Judicial Watch, which I founded, uncovered the Chinagate scandal. Millions of dollars going to the Clinton campaign, corrupting our political system.
For the privacy of citizens.
And I'm the only guy to have enjoined the National Security Agency from mass surveillance on hundreds of millions of Americans.
Tearing it up.
I'm the son of meatpackers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
Bringing it back.
We're going to take this country apart and put it back together again in the way envisioned by our founding fathers.
It's not just talk.
We're not just regurgitating news stories. Larry Klayman, special prosecutor, is making the news.
And now, here's Larry.
Welcome to this week's edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. We have another great show. A lot of news out there right now. We're first going to talk about the news, the so-called fake news, that Trump was considering firing Mueller. Actually, as much as I love the president, I don't think that was fake news. I think he was considering firing Mueller, and he should have done it. This is not the time to be weak. This is not the time to worry about appearances. This is not the time to shirk from your executive authority. And the president has the right to fire Mueller. He has the right to fire Attorney General Jeff Sessions, the Deputy Attorney General. He is the head of the executive branch. But he chose not to do that because he's getting bad advice from his so-called lawyers. Those lawyers consist of Jay Sekulow, who's a very nice person. I like Jay. He's a friend. He also is the head of the ACLJ, the American Center for Law and Justice. He's a very fine religious rights lawyer, but he's not a criminal defense lawyer. He's mostly a lawyer who goes on Fox News in these matters, and of course that's helpful. But to the extent that he's playing a role in the advice that President Trump is getting, it's not working. Ty Cobb, the great-grandson of the baseball player Ty Cobb, as I've said, this Ty Cobb has struck out. And John Dowd. Ty Cobb is a Democrat. He actually defended John Wong when I was running Judicial Watch in the late 1990s over Wong's spying in the U.S., going into the Commerce Department, allegedly disclosing classified information to the Communist Chinese, taking people on trade missions for $100,000 more contributions to the Democratic National Committee and the Clinton-Gore campaign. This is a guy who, if he defended John Wong, is obviously not suited to be defending the President of the United States, Donald Trump. And, of course, John Dowd, he's just a establishment figure. So they're pushing Trump into not firing Mueller, but instead being interviewed by Robert Mueller and his corrupted ultra-leftist staff. And that is a perjury trap. That's a formula for disaster. They will find alleged contradictions with what other witnesses have testified to before the special counsel, and they'll use probably not to indict the president, but to prepare an impeachment report like Ken Starr did back in the 1990s with Bill Clinton and send that to Congress. And if the House of Representatives turns over to the Democrats this fall, then you're going to see an impeachment. And that's going to be a terrible result because the president has a lot of important issues on his agenda. He cannot be diverted. He's got issues involving the Middle East and the terrorism and the growing threat of Hezbollah and Hamas with regard to Israel. He's got issues at home concerning immigration, concerning building a border wall. A lot of other things are out there, and we cannot afford to go through that at this perilous time in our history. And that's why we step forward. We're the ones that are going to do the job Trump's lawyers don't want to because they're part of that Washington swamp establishment and that the president has been persuaded not to do, unfortunately. We need to legally destroy Robert Mueller and his staff, and we are working hard to do that. As you know, we have brought Office of Professional Responsibility and Inspector General complaints against Robert Mueller and his staff for leaking in a criminal fashion grand jury information. It's coming out virtually daily. It doesn't even matter whether President Trump is impeached, and certainly whether he ultimately is convicted in the U.S. Senate, which I don't believe will ever happen. There aren't enough votes. But this is a way to destroy the presidency with fake news stories, smears, and everything else. Not just the presidency, but President Trump his family, and all of his associates. It's illegal. It's unethical. We filed this complaint. And then we tried to force OPR and IG to do an investigation because they didn't even respond. It went to an Obama-appointed judge, Rudolph Contreras, who did not take any action. Excuse me, Amy Berman Jackson, who's much worse, obviously. She's the one sitting on the Manafort case. We talked about her last week. Highly prejudiced, highly politicized. So we now have this case up on appeal at the D.C. Circuit, the appellate court for the federal court, to get her to order OPR and the IG to do an investigation, to confirm these criminal leaks, and to have Robert Mueller removed. In addition, this week, and you can go to our website at freedomwatchusa.org, freedomwatchusa.org, sign our petition, donate to our cause. We need your help. We need the resources. We also intervened in the prosecution of Paul Manafort, this bogus prosecution that was brought outside of the mandate of special counsel Robert Mueller. Manafort and his partner Gates were indicted for alleged crimes that occurred well before they had any association with Donald Trump and his campaign to be president, much less the transition that occurred after President Trump was elected. We're seeking to have Manafort removed, have Mueller removed in that case as well, and we've intervened in that regard. And last but not least, I always talk about how Freedom Watch does Judicial Watch used to do when I, as founder, used to run that organization. We bring a lot of hard-hitting cases. We don't bring just Freedom of Information Act cases. That's mostly what Judicial Watch does today. And they do that because the head of Judicial Watch, Tom Fitton, is not a lawyer. And obviously they're trying to do things that are a lot easier. And it's good that they get documents and gets out on TV, and Fitton gets to pound his chest about that. But, you have to follow up on what you're doing. But Freedom of Information Act cases are important in terms of getting the documentation, but then you have to use them with hard-hitting lawsuits. So this week we brought a Freedom of Information Act lawsuit against the Justice Department, against the FBI, against Robert Mueller, to get all of his communications with the media. Obviously, this will show the leaks that have been occurring. To leak grand jury information, like I said, is criminal. It's also a violation of the regulations and policies of the U.S. Department of Justice, of which I was once a proud alumnus. You simply can't do that. It's supposed to be kept confidential. So we're seeking to get that documentation to use in these other hard-hitting lawsuits that we brought or have intervened in. And we've got other things up our sleeve. We're not going to quit. I don't worry about the consequence of what I do. Our founding fathers did not worry about the consequence of what they did. They pledged their sacred honor, their fortunes, and their lives to found a new nation. We need somebody with guts in Washington, D.C. And if I do say so myself, I'm the only one that doesn't look over my shoulder as to how it might affect me with being smeared by the leftist media or anything else that may be tried. You need to go to our website at freedomwatchusa.org. freedomwatchusa.org. Sign the petition to have me appointed special counsel. Sign the petition to support our efforts to remove Robert Mueller. Donate to our cause. I'm the only one that can do it. I'm the only lawyer in the history of this country who ever got a court to rule that a president of the United States committed a crime. And that was Bill Clinton, when he illegally released the Privacy Act-protected White House file of a woman he sexually harassed in the Oval Office, Kathleen Willey. I'm the only one who is not worried about perception. I'm the only one who, as the National Journal said, has no establishment credentials and therefore has none to protect. Everybody else does. I'm not looking to present an image that will get me on Fox News all the time as a paid political consultant. I'm a gladiator. I'm someone who goes for the legal throat of criminals like the Clintons and also Mueller. And that gets to Clinton as well, because we now know what's been going on. We now know that the FBI, through this agent Peter Strzok and his mistress, Lisa Page, were protecting Clinton with regard to the email scandal that Director Comey took a dive on. Uranium One. You know what that's all about. I don't need to tell you about it. These are more Clinton scandals. This is nothing new. This is something the Clintons have been doing for over 20 years. It's a RICO enterprise. It's called lining their pockets with cold cash. and violating the law. It's called taking bribes. It's called violating the classified document concerns of national security, which gave rise to the deaths of our clients, Ty Woods and Sean Smith at Benghazi. And it gave rise to the death of Ambassador Chris Stevens and Sean Smith and Ty Woods, who were working with him in Benghazi doing undercover operations. So there's so much at stake here. I need to be appointed special. You see Jeff Sessions, he says he's conducting an investigation. Well, Sessions was interviewed by Robert Mueller. This is why he's been so timid. He's not conducting any bona fide investigation. That's just to get Congress and public perception off his back. You need a special counsel here to do an investigation, to bring indictments, to try the case, and to throw Hillary Clinton in prison, and her lovely husband, too. I think the worst punishment could be to throw them both in the same jail cell together. And that's why go to our website at freedomwatchusa.org. Sign that petition to have me appointed special counsel. Make your voice known to people in the Justice Department, Attorney General Sessions. I'll take the monkey off his back. I'm no monkey, but I'll take the monkey off his back. Let me do the job. I'll get it done. Your Deputy Attorney General, an Obama holdover, a guy named Rod Rosenstein, who's as corrupt as can be, will simply not get the job done. So look at our website. We'll be right back.
The judicial system is completely out of control in our once great nation. Renegade left-wing judges have put their corrupt and evil ideology ahead of justice, and they have assumed control of courtrooms across our land. Local, state, or federal, these judges rule like kings. At Freedom Watch, we started the Judicial Selection Strike Force to bring accountability and justice back to the judiciary. Go to judicialselectionstrikeforce.org and donate to protect your freedom from these out-of-control judges. Many have lifetime appointments, and too few care about justice if it goes against their ideological beliefs. That's judicialselectionstrikeforce.org to donate and protect your freedom from the runaway judiciary. Once again, that's judicialselectionstrikeforce.org to donate.
Dangerous.
Don't care. Use the court and the law.
Lethal.
This is bad.
Special prosecutor
Very bad.
Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
One of the things about Attorney Jeff Sessions, and we know that he was interviewed by Robert Mueller for many, many hours. This came out this week. It was a revelation. We know that he was part of the Trump campaign team. He was at a very high level. He was the first U.S. senator to actually support Donald Trump. And then he was on the transition team. We know that there were wiretaps on the Trump Tower, President Trump, people in and around him that were triggered by that phony dossier that Hillary Clinton and the Democrats paid for of Fusion GPS. That was the pretext to get a FISA warrant, Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court warrant, to wiretap the Trump Tower. But we also know that Jeff Sessions himself lied to Congress. I mean, it was stupid that he lied. It meant nothing. But he decided he wasn't going to reveal some meetings that he had in the Senate office, which were perfectly legitimate, with the Russian ambassador. So he's being investigated by Mueller for that, for so-called Russian collusion. He also played a role in the firing of Comey. And again, there was nothing wrong in him doing that. And he should never have recused himself from any subsequent investigations by the special counsel, who was then appointed right after Mueller was fired. But Sessions has felt as if he's at risk. It's obvious now why he feels that way. He is a subject, if not a target, of Mueller's investigation. And although they're colleagues, this is all part of one big club in Washington, and he'll probably never be indicted, he feels at risk. And that's why he's been inert. That's why he feels like he has a monkey on his back. That's why when Congress tells him to appoint a special counsel, he says he's opened an investigation into the Clinton scandals and what's been going on with the FBI. But 97% of lawyers at the Justice Department are leftists. 97% donated or voted for Clinton and Obama. And that notwithstanding, the Justice Department has never done its job, not in my professional lifetime, in really dealing with high-level corruption at the level of presidents and at the level of presidential candidates. It just didn't happen. So when you see people go on TV, when you see them go on Fox News or other networks, with a big smile, yes, we caused this investigation. I had a big smile when I was back at Judicial Watch and we triggered the Chinagate investigation. Nothing happened. Nothing's going to happen now. Absolutely not. It's the club in Washington. It's the National Football League. It's the American Football League. And I'm not talking about the Philadelphia Eagles, which, by the way, I'm rooting for. I've always been an Eagles fan. I was born in Philadelphia. Or the dishonest New England Patriots, who I hope lose, frankly. But it's really about each side doing this dog and pony show to get themselves on television, to get votes, to get contributions. But I'll bet the ranch. Everything I own, I will bet there will never be an indictment coming out of the Justice Department of Hillary Clinton. They won't take any action to remove Robert Mueller. And Jeff Sessions should be happy that I'm out there at Freedom Watch doing the job that he should be doing. So again, go to our website at freedomwatchusa.org, freedomwatchusa.org. Sign our petition. Please donate to us. We are the mouse that roared. We are your Justice Department. Regrettably, as a former alumnus of the Justice Department, I am sickened and disgusted that it has turned into the Department of Injustice. It is an absolute cesspool. Now, we're going to be coming back at our 14-minute segment with my colleague and very good friend, Bob Barr. He and I worked together to impeach Bill Clinton, along with Dave Schippers, the impeachment manager. Bob Barr is the only person I could ever trust and believe in the U.S. Congress. Bob and I have done some things together. See what we do in the future. It's going to be ramped up. But there aren't any Bob Barrs in Congress. I don't care how many times these people come on TV and say they're going to do anything. Trey Gowdy talks a good game, but when push comes to shove, he's nowhere to be found. And the rest of them just like that as well. So go to freedomwatchusa.org. I know I'm pumping this, okay? And this is an entertainment show, but you know what? It's also an informative show. We don't just make the news. We publish the news. But we really need your help. We need a citizen army. When we come back with Bob Barr, we're going to talk about the ramifications of what's been going on at the Justice Department and at the FBI. Bob was a former U.S. attorney. He was also a congressman from Georgia, someone who had a lot of courage, and I'm very proud to call him my friend and my colleague. But in the meantime, go to freedomwatchusa.org, sign up for our newsletter, sign our petition, donate to our cause. I can't say this enough. We're in a crisis. We're in a war, a legal war. And we have to stand up for this country or we're not going to have a country at all. I'll be right back.
And now, 4 words that make corrupt politicians make wee-wee in their little pants.
Transparency and the rule of law will be the touchstones of this presidency.
But we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
Be the one who makes our country great again. Go to freedomwatchusa.org and donate.
We're back with Bob Barr, my friend and colleague. Bob, who was a former U.S. attorney in the Northern District of Georgia. Bob, who was a congressman, frankly, the only one that I've ever worked with that had any guts and would, frankly, ever be honest with you. Most of them, it's kind of like the movie Distinguished Gentleman of Eddie Murphy. You know, you go up and you talk to them and they say, yeah, or they have their staff come out and then they go away and do whatever they want to do, frankly, usually not the nation's business, basically stuffing money into their pockets for their next political campaign. But, Bob, I wanted to get your take on what's been going on with this news that Trump thought about firing Mueller. He is the ultimate executive leader. I mean, he has the right to do it, in my opinion. Sessions being interviewed by Mueller. What we now find out about Peter's mistress, Lisa Page, all the text messages and emails that went missing and everything else. I mean, our alma mater, we're both proud alumnuses, or alumni, rather, of the Justice Department. I would suspect that your view of the Justice Department as it exists today is not the same as when you were a U.S. attorney or when I was a trial attorney for the Antitrust Division. But I wanted to get your take because it's very insightful, and I wanted the people to listen to our show and our supporters listen to someone as well who has an opinion on these very important and dire subjects.
Thank you so much, Larry. It's always great to be talking with you and your many listeners. And you've correctly identified the fact that what's going on up in Washington is a terrible mess. And the center of that storm is the FBI and the Department of Justice, which is always unfortunate when the credibility of the nation's preeminent law enforcement agency, the FBI, and the Department of Justice, which is supposed to uphold the standard of justice for the entire country, have these sort of problems, and the American public clearly is losing and has lost faith in these fundamentally important institutions. Back when I was the U.S. Attorney under Presidents Reagan and Bush 1, the FBI was the gold standard for law enforcement. That was not to say at that time or currently that the Bureau does not make mistakes, that there are not occasional bad agents. Certainly, we've seen that over the years. But what's happening now appears perhaps to be a new institutional problem with the FBI, where you have agents, not only Strzok and Page, but others as well, as part of a cabal, so to speak, conspiring against the election of a president, and in an effort then after the election and after President Trump took office in January last year, this group seems to have continued to engage in an effort to undermine the presidency. And the damage goes far beyond simply any damage to this administration, part of which, of course, President Trump can rectify, but it goes to the credibility of the institutions in all the other important work that they're involved in.
Well, Bob, you and I lived through a very tumultuous period in the 1990s when I was working with you and Dave Shears and others on the House Judiciary Committee to impeach Bill Clinton. Of course, he was never convicted in the U.S. Senate. The Republicans there bailed out, which was typical. Then there was the Chinagate scandal, and I helped trigger that at Judicial Watch with John Wong's Chinese spy that was embedded at the Commerce Department, turning over classified information. It was believed Chinese, raising large amounts of money from the communist Chinese to pay Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton to get her husband reelected, and a lot of other things. Who knows where else the cash went? They also went to the Clinton Library and other things like that. We know of constant scandals by the Clintons and others, and not just Democrats and the Clintons, but Republicans as well. And nothing ever happens to the higher-ups. It hasn't happened before. Now, and as I said in the earlier segment before you joined us, I believe that Attorney General Sessions, who is now obviously a subject or target of the Russian collusion investigation, and also the alleged obstruction of justice for his involvement in firing James Comey, both of which claims bogus, I believe, and most people believe that who have any common sense, he feels that he's threatened. So when he says that he's having his lawyers investigate the Clinton scandals, I just simply don't believe that he's going to happen. But I wanted to get your view on that because I think we need a special counsel, and of course I volunteered to be one. And you can go to freedomwatchusa.org to sign our petition. So maybe we'll convince someone to actually appoint me. But Bob, what's your thoughts?
I think here again, Larry, you're precisely on target. The situation where you have an attorney general who used to be in the political arena in the Senate, who was a strong and vocal supporter of the president during the campaign in 2016. Now sitting as Attorney General and working with, or apparently now being investigated by, Special Counsel Mueller, presents an untenable situation where you have questions surrounding the very Attorney General himself as part of this investigation. And it can't help but affect the credibility and stature of the Attorney General knowing that he is being looked at. We don't know in exactly in what capacity, but to be interviewed for over an hour by the special counsel is not a situation that can be good for the Attorney General or the office itself, Larry. There needs to be a true outside independent counsel appointed to look into this. It can't simply go on the way it's going now, or the Department of Justice and the FBI will lose all credibility.
Well, there's so much out there right now about illegal conduct by the Clintons, not just the past and went through, Bob, and what happened in the interim years. There were scandals even then. But now it's in front of everybody's face. And MSNBC and CNN, the Washington Post, the New York Times, Huffington Post, Daily Beast, Mother Jones, which is a communist rag. I mean, they can all, be a front to try to cover all of this up. But anybody who has any degree of intelligence, an IQ of 80, can see that major crimes were committed. And the view here is that if nothing's ever done, we have no justice system left. And the American people, we're held accountable, ordinary people, but they're not. And I think we're in a situation similar to what we faced with King George III leading up to the Revolution, where the king was above any law, any edict, even the ones that he issued, and did what he wanted. And that's the crisis I see.
It is, Larry. The Clintons have always enjoyed, for one reason or another, either because of former President Bill Clinton's tremendous charisma and personality, or because of the ruthlessness which always has characterized his wife, Hillary. For whatever reason, this pair, who have conspired since the early days of their political career in Arkansas back in the 1980s, have conspired to enrich themselves and those around them at the expense of the citizens that they purport to represent, whether in Arkansas or in the United States generally, while Clinton served as president. And these scandals have continued almost continuously, really, since Bill Clinton left the office of the presidency in early 2000. We have the uranium scandal. We have the scandal involving the very, very improper, illegal relationship between the Clinton Foundation and the Department of State while Hillary was there, and other federal agencies. These things have continued even after the Mrs. Clinton left the Secretary of State's office, and during the campaign last year, the Clinton campaign funding the so-called Russian dossier, and then it finds its way to the FBI and in the hands, apparently, of anti-Trump individuals there, and yet we continue to see much of the mainstream media simply give a pass to the Clintons and instead focus their fury on President Trump, overlooking all of the good things that have happened from an economic and regulatory standpoint during the last year.
Yeah, I saw just yesterday that the president's popularity has risen to 46%. That's up 10%. Just in the last few weeks. The stock market has doubled. We have better times potentially on the horizon, notwithstanding North Korea and the instability created by Iran and the Palestine Liberation Organization over there in the Middle East. But things are going well in this country, and to be derailed by these kinds of investigations, there needs to be a special counsel. But even short of that, I think that Sessions should maybe take a leave of absence as Attorney General. Before he does that, fire Rod Rosenstein and get somebody in there that isn't an Obama partisan, that isn't basically a lapdog to Mueller. And we know that Rosenstein, the Deputy Attorney General who appointed Mueller, actually was involved in investigating Clinton scandals. And they didn't follow up on it. Uranium One, it was being handled out of the U.S. Attorney's Office in Maryland, and he was the U.S. Attorney at the time. There are so many conflicts, it makes your head spin. And this guy Rosenstein, he's a big problem. So I would say to the Attorney General, appoint a special counsel. Lead, follow, or get out of the way, as Lee Iacocca used to say as head of Chrysler, and get rid of Rosenstein. before you get out of the way, because he is a big problem at the Department of Justice. And then start cleaning house with the line lawyers. I mean, why are we hiring all these people with these political inclinations? We know Bruce Orr. I actually dealt with Orr back in the 1990s on a scandal involving Hillary Clinton getting $2 million of illegal campaign contributions. He sent his people down to Brazil to meet with our client who had signed a cooperation agreement, Peter Paul, who put on the Hollywood tribute to Bill Clinton to raise that $2 million. And Peter was indicted. Hillary Clinton walked off scot-free. Totally unfair and unjust. But this is the way the department works. We now know that Bruce Orr is a partisan Democrat. And this department, when it comes to political corruption, is indelibly partisan. And that's why we need a special counsel, and it makes me sound self-serving, but I got to say it. I'll get the job done. Or you, Bob, is that we need somebody that will just let it rip and not worry about perceptions, consequences, or getting some higher appointment in Washington, D.C. Because right now, this country has no justice system. There are third world countries that have a better justice system than we do at the present time. So
it's interesting.
I don't know. I mean, what do we do?
It's interesting, Larry, that you mentioned Brazil and the Peter Paul case, because in Brazil, as you've probably followed over the last couple of years, prosecutors and the justice system in Brazil has indeed been doing exactly what you indicate needs to be done here and has not been done here, and that is to have independent prosecutors and an independent judiciary go after not only former high government officials but current high government officials because of deep embedded systemic corruption. It's amazing that we see Brazil doing it the right way and having prosecutors and judges who fearlessly go after these high government officials, including presidents and former presidents, because of corruption. And then we see what's happening here and what the Clintons just get away with year after year after year.
That's right. Look at Israel. Same thing. They have a former Prime Minister, Ehud Olmert, in prison right now for taking bribes. So when we kid ourselves in saying that we have the best justice system in the world, are you kidding me? In practice, we don't. On paper, we do. But, on paper, even the Soviet Union had a good justice system. But in practice, it was completely perverted by the communists. And, probably even Iran has one on paper.
30. But
they pick people up and execute them and torture them. I had clients that we brought cases against the regime. So, Bob, I want to thank you for your friendship, for your patriotism, and we'll have you on it in future shows. It's always good to get your perspective.
Thank you, Larry. I appreciate it and look forward to it.
God bless. I'll be right back.
Before he was a trial lawyer, he sliced him and diced him.
People used to ask me, Larry, what caused you to start Judicial Watch and now Freedom Watch, given the powerful forces in this country that put you at risk?
In a meat packing plant.
I'm the son of meat packers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
A very special prosecutor, Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
There was another big development this week. I was in Las Vegas, Nevada. I've really come to like Nevada. It's a beautiful place. But unfortunately, we have the Harry Reids and the others there, mafia-connected individuals that tried to do a number on my client, Cliven Bundy, and his really fine, righteous family. But I filed a lawsuit yesterday. It's a very important lawsuit in state court. It asked for a declaratory judgment that the land upon which Cliven ranches and the other land in Nevada, not just Clark County, but throughout Nevada, is owned by the people of Nevada. And why is that important? And we can show legally that it is. Because the federal government claims to own 85% of the land in Nevada. It has a large portion they claim to own in Utah and Arizona, California, throughout the West. And this gave them the pretext to try to manage that land through the Bureau of Land Management. And who has been calling the strings like a puppeteer on the Bureau of Land Management? These radical environmental groups that really don't care about protected species, but they're using this as a way because they are socialist, communist types, atheists on top of that want total government control. You know, for atheists, the government is their god, and also for the ultra-leftists. So they have tried to drive Cliven out of business for years. They succeeded through Obama and Harry Reid to get him and his sons indicted and 15 other defendants. Fortunately, that case is now over. The government still can appeal it. But now they're urging the Bureau of Land Management and threatening to file lawsuits to force Bureau of Land Management to go back and try to seize Cliven's cattle again. They're lunatics, they're crazy, but we need to get a decision out of a Nevada state court, once and for all, that land belongs to the people of Nevada. And the federal government only held it in trust for a very short period for the states, for when they became states. And ask yourself, how can you be a state when the federal government claims to own your land? It just simply doesn't make sense. So this is a strong case. It's going to be in front of a state court judge, and I dare that state court judge to rule against the people of Nevada. I would doubt that he or she would be reelected in that circumstance. And the Attorney General of Nevada, who's running for governor, Adam Laxalt, who is a very nice man and I hope well-intentioned. He's the son of Paul Laxalt, a very fine senator from Nevada, not like a Harry Reid type who was very close with President Reagan. I hope that he will, in fact, support that, and we could have a consent judgment, declaratory judgment, that Nevada owns the land. And that will keep the feds off the back of the Bundys. And it'll be precedent for all the ranchers throughout the West. This is a big issue for the West. You know, I was born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and that's the East Coast. People on the East Coast, with some exceptions, maybe Lancaster, Pennsylvania, if you're Amish or Mennonite, and groups like that, city dwellers don't appreciate what the land means. The land is our lifeblood. The land is the homestead. That is the rock-solid basis of this country, land and its ownership. And when you try to take it away from a family that's ranched it for 150 years, you are basically sticking a knife in their heart. And I've come to understand that. With all the times that I met with Cliven in the last year, we've become very close. We're like brothers. And I feel that way with the family, too, that I'm kind of an honorary member of the family because I know what they've gone through. And they were willing to risk life imprisonment for a constitutional principle that this land is our land. You know, talk about Mormons being one of the tribes of Israel and then believing that the United States is their promised land, first to Israel, is that land is everything. You know, there was a Woody Allen movie years ago, War and Peace, where one of the characters walked around with a piece of sod, a piece of dirt, because that was the only thing you can count on in the Soviet Union. Maybe you owned a little piece of land, with the communism. But that's what's important about this. So go to ClivenBundyDefenseFund.org, read that complaint, support Cliven's Defense Fund because we've got legal fights ahead of us. But also go to freedomwatchusa.org, sign our petition to have me appointed special counsel to finally have the Clintons indicted, prosecuted, and thrown in prison where the sun don't shine, and also to take out Robert Mueller legally. It needs to be done. No one else will do it except Larry Klayman and Freedom Watch. God bless you. God bless your family. God save America during these difficult times. You need a Freedom Watch. See you next week.